After listening to Hu Qian's words, the elders present were not polite. The leader of the elders took it first, and after scanning it quickly, his eyes suddenly widened. It was like seeing some incredible news. He even rubbed his eyes and then looked at the scroll in his hand again. When he was sure that there was nothing wrong, he slumped down on the chair in a daze, spread the scroll in his hand on the table and said to himself, "How could he have done this? At this age, am I really living like a dog? Why don't you just write a book about the days I spent at Canaan College?" Brother Xiao Yan, when did this piece of wood become enlightened? Like the first elder who read the scroll, they began to doubt that they came on their own. At the same time, they kept mumbling to themselves, "He has a clean background and is worthy of training. I think he should report it directly to the inner court. What do you think?" Some people hesitated for a moment and backed down. Like him, many people acted strangely, and they really couldn't beat Xiao Yan. Seeing this situation, the handsome young man in white and the woman in red became a little anxious. The former immediately cleared his throat and said, "However, as soon as this proposal came out, the bodies of everyone present froze slightly. Although they were all Sooner suitors and couldn't stand Xiao Yan, they were still convinced by the strength Xiao Yan showed. No one dares to question after all. Having just entered the outer academy and having a Dou Ling level of cultivation is too shocking."
Kshuner was pulled by Xiao Yan.
Although her pretty face turned red, she did not refuse. Instead, she even felt an unnatural feeling of joy rising in her heart. Shuebeng, who was easily defeated by Xiao Yan during the day, was the first to speak with a gloomy face. As he spoke, someone on the side also picked up the conversation and immediately spoke. "Yes, that damn guy made such a shameless device just because he knew Sino earlier than we did. His heart is to be punished." Ahem, it's not as exaggerated as you think. Looking carefully at the last sentence of the information, Xiao Yan seems to have used a strange soul power to suppress Dozong. That should not be his true strength. I heard through the grapevine that this time the ranking competition will be a big melee. When the time comes, we will join forces and eliminate Xiao Yan first. This will be a breath of bad blood. What do you think? Ahem, we're not seeking death. Do you still remember the ranking competition after the audition? Haha, we are all Sooner suitors, but our biggest enemy is that guy. In this case, we might as well join forces and teach that guy a lesson. This is nothing. Not to mention that the Yulmon sect was banned for 10 years by Xiao Yan. The remaining major forces in the Jiama Empire also established a Yan alliance, and the leader of the Yan alliance is this Xiao Yan. Yan, even the lowest level of cultivation among the higher-ups requires a strong Dou Huang warrior to be able to do it. However, thinking of this, the information about Xiao Yan's experiences in the Jiama Empire that Linging had previously conveyed also appeared in Sunner's mind, and her joy was somewhat dampened immediately. Even if he knew about those people's plans, I'm afraid he would just laugh it off and curse in his heart for being a jealous brat. As a human being in two lives, Xiao Yan's character is far inferior to that of himself at the same time in his previous life. For Xiao Yan, who has experienced the Battle of Emperors, all the fighting now is similar to playing house. But Dozong Yinshan took action personally, but still lost to Xiao Yan within 10 moves. Is this reasonable? Is this normal? 2607 530 6075E. 1A figure in white. Clothes with a handsome face said with a bit of unwillingness. Hearing his words, many elders around him couldn't help but frown. What kind of news could make a college elder seem to have lost his life goal? However, when the scroll passed through a circle around the round table, everyone except Hu Qian slumped on their chairs and fell completely into a state of confusion. I agree. If you have this ability, why should you be a student? You can just go to the inner courtyard and become an elder. Count my vote. Today's inner court selection competition has ended. Xiao Yan bid farewell to tutors Xiao Yu and Roland and left Sunner gracefully. But what he didn't know was that a group of people quietly gathered together. Their strength is quite good, and they are considered the best in the inner courtyard. The ones with the lowest strength are around the high-star Dou Masters, and there are even 5 or 6 great Dou Masters. Then Xiao Yan was extremely arrogant when he first came to the academy. He even stole Sun'er's heart. He showed off his affection in front of us in public. It's really abominable. Hu Qian patted the table, looked around at everyone, and said calmly. After hearing his words, the elders immediately sat up straight and said quickly, "Not only that, the Yunlin sect of the Gemma Empire is not simple, but there is a strong Dou sect in it. How is this possible, to join the Yunlin sect alone as a great fighting master, and even defeat the Yunlin sect's Douwang elder in front of everyone?" Suddenly, the room became awkward. Many elders also reacted and stood up immediately, ending their leisurely appearance. Hu Qian also coughed a few times in embarrassment, and then slowly said, as if he didn't notice the behavior of many college elders just now, "This is a bit uncomfortable, isn't it?" But even so, with the abilities and cultivation talents he has shown, he should be the possessor of the strongest potential since the founding of Canaan College. Hearing this, there was no need to challenge Xiao Yan alone. Everyone who had originally retreated stopped and turned around with emotion. Xiao Yan, who didn't know what these people were doing, had already dragged Sun'er to find a remote and quiet place in the college. An elder murmured to himself and spoke his heart. The information given by Ling Ying clearly described everything that Xiao Yan had experienced, and among them, it was named that Xiao Yan not only had an ambiguous relationship with Yun Yun, the beautiful sect leader of the Yunlin sect. There was even the arrogant Queen Medusa of the Snake tribe who followed Xiao Yan and walked with him for some unknown reason. Although Sun'er believed in Xiao Yan's character, the girl's character was still quite concerned about these aspects. However, it is a bit hurtful to ask such words when we meet again after a long separation, and we are filled with tenderness. For now, let's enjoy the tranquility of the moment. Just when Xiao Yan and Sun'er reunited after a long absence, enjoying the rare world of two people under the quiet moonlight, Xiao Yu, who had just returned to her residence, unexpectedly received a long-lost letter from home. Take out a moonstone and hang it in the lamp on the table to illuminate the room. Xiao Yu sat at the table with some nostalgia, took off the paint, and opened the envelope. I don't know what happened to my family now that I haven't been back for more than 2 years. Are my father and mother okay? Xiao Yu murmured to himself, took out the paper from the envelope, spread it out, and began to read it carefully. On top of the letter, he first wrote some words of greeting and at the same time explained that he was doing well recently. By the way, he also asked about the academic progress of the two siblings Xiao Yu and Xiao Ning. Xiao Yu read the letter with a bit of a smile, but when she saw the second half, the original smile disappeared from her face, and she was filled with a bit of shock and disbelief. The closer you look to the back, the longer and bigger Xiao Yu's mouth becomes, and the look of astonishment on his face becomes deeper and deeper. Since young patriarch Xiao Yan went to the 3-year appointment and defeated the powerful Yunlin sect, the entire Gemma Empire has undergone earth-shaking changes. The Yan alliance was established, and many powerful forces from the Garma Empire joined it to obey the orders of the young patriarch. Don't dare to disobey. Even the Xiao family has undergone earth-shaking changes now. The first elder and the second elder have broken through to Dou Wang, and the clan leader has broken through to Dou Ling, and enjoys the seat of elders in the Yan League. Xiao Yu could understand every word on it, but when they were put together, she couldn't understand it. Is it true that such a big change has happened in just 2 years? If it weren't for the handwriting on it, Xiao Yu was pretty sure it was written by her mother, and I'm afraid she would also suspect that it was a fake. Oh my god, what the hell happened? Rubbing his forehead, Xiao Yu finally calmed down after disagreeing. Suddenly, he remembered something, opened the letter again, searched carefully, found a sentence in it, and read it slowly. Since the young patriarch Xiao Yan defeated the 3-year appointment and defeated the powerful Yunlin sect, everything became clear. Xiao Yu suddenly remembered the figure in black robe, and his resolute smile, and those shocking words appeared in his mind. 30 years to the east of the river and 30 to the west of the river, don't bully young people into poverty. She suddenly understood and murmured, It turns out that everything happened because of you, so it's not surprising. He is really an elusive cousin who makes people unconsciously want to admire him. Under the dark night, in the quiet boudoir, a beautiful figure crouched beside the desk. She carefully and solemnly put away the family letter and hid it in the ring. The next day, Xiao Ning was angered by many students at Canaan College because he refused to disclose Sun'er's contact information, and Xiao Ning, who was beaten up with a black nose and face, was also informed of the news by Xiao Yu. After he took the letter from home and read it left and right, he was filled with mixed feelings after being stunned. The figure that seemed to be overtaken by him because of the 3 years of stagnation seemed to be far away again at this moment. Once you pass them, you can't see their backs. But after the complexity was over, the two of them felt happy and proud. After all, such a powerful genius was their cousin. The Xiao family was about to rise. Among the entire Canaan Academy, the most talented person has appeared, and that is Xiao Yan. No one can surpass him. Even the graceful Baishan in white, the blood. Sword Wu Hao from the law enforcement team who is good at fighting, and the little demon girl in red named Hu Jia, together they are far inferior to Xiao Yan. No one in the entire outer courtyard can be his opponent, not even the elders. On the other side, Xiao Yan and Sun'er also had a long talk. The two told each other about their experiences during this period. When Sun'er heard that Xiao Yan had been in danger several times and even suffered a blow when swallowing Qinglian's inner fire, his pupils were touched and his whole body clenched his fists tightly, feeling sorry for him. But when she heard the news that Xiao Yan came first in the alchemist competition and went straight to the Yunlan sect, she felt extremely proud of Xiao Yan. This was the person she had chosen. Sun'er also told about his experience of practicing in the outer academy and at the same time reminded Xiao Yan vaguely about the news that Canaan Academy was divided into inner and outer courtyards. For Xiao Yan, who had experienced all this in his previous life, Yan Lai, of course he knows better. However, he did not stop Sun'er from telling her story. After all, this was Xiao Nizi's wish. After the two communicated, they decided that no matter what, the goal was to enter the inner courtyard of Canaan College. We would talk about the rest later. With Brother Xiao Yan's current strength, it may not be difficult to enter the inner courtyard. Perhaps it will be very easy. Sun'er said with a bit of smile and joy, and Xiao Yan naturally knew what the real strength of this little girl in front of him was now. She likes to hide her clumsiness in front of herself and let herself express herself. But the real strength is far beyond what is shown on the surface. Recalling his last life, Xiao Yan couldn't help but touch his nose. Less than a year later, he entered the first strong ranking competition in the inner courtyard.
He tied
with Lu Qing, who was ranked third on the strong list, but Sun But Air was behind, with a smile and no show of shame, and defeated the second-ranked Lin Xiuya within 10 moves. Even so, Xiao Yan could feel that the faint fluctuations coming from Sun'er's body were probably not weaker than those of Dou Wang, but they were just forcibly hidden and sealed by something. However, Xiao Yan had no intention of exposing these little secrets. Since Sun'er likes to shield her from the wind and rain in front of her, why not do it himself? In this way, time passed day by day, and soon, during this period, Xiao Yan took Sun'er around for fun, and it seemed that his cultivation was completely abandoned. This also made many students who were hostile to Xiao Yan feel a little jealous. Fortunately, the audition for the inner court selection competition was over, and there were a total of 50 people ranked. The next step is the ranking battle. Based on the ranking, the number of places in the Tibetan scripture pavilion will be determined, and who will get it. Except for Xiao Yan and Sun'er, the remaining people who had won the ranking battle spots were gearing up, secretly united, and decided to teach Xiao Yan a profound lesson. The next day, the sun was shining, it was a good weather, and it was destined to be the hottest day of the year at Canaan College. On the edge of the square, there were many times the number of people gathered compared to the previous few days. It was a sea of people and a dense darkness. They stared intently at the center of the square, where 50 tall figures stood. Among them, the 5 most eye-catching figures naturally stood at the front of the team, leisurely and contented, but they seemed to be divided into small groups. Xiao Yan and Sun'er were together, about 7 or 8 meters apart, with Baishan, Hu Jia, and Wu House standing on the other side. With a bit of a smile, Xiao Yan glanced across the square, shook his head with a slight smile, and said calmly, "These little brats really like to be jealous. They are so young." With Xiao Yan's experience, how could he not see that the eyes of these people often cast naked hostility towards him, and there was also a bit of sourness. The eyes of the students who had not experienced intrigues and deceitful beatings were quite innocent and stupid, and they did not understand at all. "Hide your thoughts." Suner, on the other hand, covered her mouth and smiled softly, saying softly, "This shows that Brother Xiao Yan has a strong ability to attract hatred." Hearing Suner's words, Xiao Yan directly stretched out his hand, rubbed the latter's head, and said deliberately, viciously, "Then I have to ask, which little girl is it that attracts so much hatred to me in the academy?" Faced with Xiao Yan's head-touching attack, Suner did not stop him, but a faint blush appeared on his face and he whispered, "Brother Xiao Yan, there are people around here." On the side, many Canaan Academy students who were watching the interaction between Xiao Yan and Suner opened their eyes wide and then felt a chill in their hearts. The hot beating heart was like a broken piece of porcelain thrown to the ground. One piece.
Boom.
As the sun rose high in the blue sky, the clear chime of the bell finally rang in the square. After hearing the chime of the bell, the noisy square became slightly quieter. Countless eyes followed the clock sound, looking towards the extremely wide square. In the center of the square, where everyone's attention gathered, a figure with gray hair and wings behind his back flap. His wings stood out of thin air. His eyes looked around, and a powerful sound exploded like muffled thunder, spreading throughout the square and the stands. The inner court selection competition has ended. All 50 students who are qualified to enter the inner court practice have arrived in the center of the square. However, there are also strict levels of hierarchy in the inner court, and strength is everything. Every ranking improvement here means that you will get more resources when you enter the inner court, so I am announcing it here. The ranking competition has officially begun. There are no rules. Whoever can persist to the end will be the real winner. As soon as the words fell, there was an uproar. This was a big melee. But after Hu Qian announced, although everyone was in a commotion, they did not take action immediately. Most people focused their attention on a tall and thin figure. Above, Suner held Xiao Yan's hand and suddenly tightened it, feeling a little worried, but Xiao Yan didn't have too many emotions, but gently patted the back of Suner's hand to reassure her. After protecting Suner behind him, Xiao Yan turned around, looked at the 48 figures in the distance, took a step forward and said lightly, "I know what you are all thinking, so now I give you a chance. If you want to challenge me, come on together." Hearing Xiao Yan's words, everyone in the stands was in an uproar. Even Hu Qian and many college elders who were flapping their wings to monitor the game high in the sky were slightly startled. However, there was a commotion among many students below, and then a group of people suddenly burst into flames. Countless streams of colorful fighting energy erupted from their bodies, and they rushed towards Xiao Yan together. "You said this yourself, Xiao Yan. We just see you unhappy. Why can you win Suner's heart? If we stand on the same starting line, the outcome has not yet been decided." Facing the menacing crowd, Xiao Yan was not afraid at all. He immediately took a step forward, his fighting energy gathered in his body, and then punched out, while yelling, "A bunch of little brats who have nothing to think about at such a young age, please go back and practice hard." The battle broke out, and for a while, on the square, colorful streams of fighting energy flashed continuously, and from time to time, someone flew out and fell to the ground far away. However, even so, there were countless students, like moths rushing to a flame, rushing towards Xiao Yan, who was surrounded by everyone. The melee lasted for half an hour. No, it was not so much a melee as a one-sided battle. Xiao Yan single-handedly resisted the entire Canaan College selection candidates and defeated them one by one.
Beat.
In the end, everyone was lying on the ground with bruises and swollen faces, and there were only 2 standing figures left in the square. Suner, who had never participated in a single battle, and Xiao Yan, whose clothes were in tatters and had slight injuries all over his body, still stood proudly and never took a step back. In this battle, he did not use any additional means and fought purely with his own combat experience and his own fighting spirit cultivation. It was also in this battle that Xiao Yan completely conquered the entire outer courtyard of Canaan College. The audience who watched this battle fell into silence at first. When Xiao Yan finally blew away Hu Jia, who came forward, the audience unanimously agreed, shouting Xiao Yan's name loudly, with Hu Qian looking stunned and helpless. After announcing the results of the competition, Xiao Yan took Suner and walked down from the square in a graceful manner, leaving only dozens of figures lying on the ground. Lying on the ground, Hu Jia, dressed in red, looked at the sky in the distance and murmured to himself, "This Xiao Yan is really a monster. I understand why Suner fell in love with him." Bai Shan, who was also lying on the ground with pain all over his body, snorted angrily. He is just relying on his superior cultivation. When I break through to Douling, he can do the same. However, although he said this, there was no confidence in his words. It was clear that Xiao Yan's figure had left an indelible impression in his mind. Wu Hao, who stood up slowly with his blood-colored heavy sword on his back, heard the conversation between the two. After being silent for a while, he spoke very rarely. "He is very strong. I am convinced. Compared to the little witch, he is the real monster." Hearing these words, Hu Jia and Bai Shan also fell silent. After a long time, the two slowly stood up, feeling the pain in their bodies. The former said with a bit of a wry smile, "Yes, this Xiao Yan is the real evildoer." In the outer court of Canaan College, this year's inner court selection competition and ranking competition have come to an end. Xiao Yan's name resounded throughout the outer courtyard. Even Canaan City was full of his name. The well-deserved #1 person in the outer courtyard this time appeared impressively.